Hello everybody, we're going to talk about bias in sampling. Now that we learned how to create a sample using different techniques, we're going to explain the sources of bias in sampling. If the results of the sample are not representative of the population, then the sample has bias. There are three sources of bias. The bias could be a sampling bias, or it could be a response bias, or could be non-response bias. The sampling bias means that the technique used to obtain the individuals to be in the sample tends to favor one part of the population over another. Maybe you used a different technique. Maybe you used simple random sampling when you should have used the cluster sampling or used the stratified sampling technique. Maybe your sample was a convenient sample. So that is going to result in a sampling bias, because the sample is not going to be representative of the entire population, which can lead to an undercoverage. Undercoverage results in a sampling bias. Undercoverage occurs when the proportion of one segment of the population is lower in a sample than it is in the population. The other type of bias is the non-response bias. Non-response bias exists when the individuals selected to be in the sample who do not respond to the survey have different opinion from those who do. Non-response can be improved through the use of callback or incentives. Sometimes we receive surveys in the mail, but we choose not to respond to the survey because they don't include the $5 that we're looking for. That is why we don't respond to the survey, while our opinion matters, and maybe it is different from the other people who responded to the survey. That is going to create a non-response bias. The response bias exists when the answer on a survey do not reflect the true feeling of the respondent for some reason. It could be an interviewer error, wording of the question, or order of question or words, and some other reasons that lead to response biases, like the respondents are not sharing their true feelings about the question. Another source of bias could be data entry. Although technically it is not a result of a response bias, data entry error will lead to results that are not representative of the population. Once data are collected, the results may need to be entered into a computer, which could result in an input errors, or the respondent may make a data entry error. For example, instead of using 39, they will enter 93. It is imperative that data be checked for accuracy. Non-sampling errors are errors that result from sampling bias, non-response bias, response bias, or data entry errors. Such errors could also be present in a complete census of a population. Sampling error is an error that results from using a sample to estimate information about a population. This type of error occurs because a sample gives incomplete information about the total population.